All right, friends, welcome to podcast 3 in the series on animal behavior. In this podcast, we're going to be focusing on learned behaviors as opposed to those that are innate. We do have a bridge behavior. We had talked in the innate behavior podcast about migration, which has a very significant part of it as programmed innate behavior, but also has a component, may have a component of learning involved in it as well, depending on the type of migrating you're talking about, and a significant component of learned behavior. We left off by mentioning the idea of imprinting, and so that's what we're going to pick up in this podcast. Imprinting is another sort of a innate but also learning type of behavior. Imprinting Imprinting involves a certain critical period in an animal's life, very near the very beginning of an animal's life, whereas there is a period of time where that animal, perhaps a little chick or something that is hatched out of an egg, will focus on essentially the first animal that it sees, and it will do the things that animal does. It will follow it around, and it will try to act like that animal. That is called imprinting. Imprinting itself, the act of doing that and the presence of that critical period, is an innate behavior. That is innate, that is hardwired, that's programmed. However, what the animal, the little chick, learns from the animal it focuses on is obviously learned behaviors. Okay? So imprinting obviously then does have both innate and learned components to it. Okay? There's been quite a lot of experimental work done with imprinting. Konrad Lorenz is most famous for this work. Basically, he had clutch of goose eggs, clutch meaning a group laid at the same time, and he divided it into two groups. Half stayed with the gooses, with the goose mother, and half were incubated by scientists, researchers working with him, and spent their first few hours of life with those researchers instead of their actual goose mother. What happened was that those little babies bonded to the researchers, and from that point on, they followed the researcher wherever he went, and would not follow the mother goose nor any other of the geese on their farm. And throughout their lives, evidently, continued to show preference for humans as opposed to geese, some even engaging in courtship behaviors with humans. So this is the idea of imprinting. You're going to imprint on the first animal you see, and those are the behaviors, those are the animals that you are going to copy and that you're going to relate to. Okay? This is a cute little video showing a little duckling that has imprinted on this puppy, and you can see him. He follows everyone around. Everyone. The puppy around everywhere he goes. Classic imprinting behavior here. Okay. The important thing to remember is that this is the only time in this little duck's life that he can form these attachments. So this is it. This is going to be hardwired into this little duckling's behavior after that. Okay? All right. We'll stop here and move on to the next slide. Hold on, I'm a little stuck. There we go. Okay, and we've already talked about this. The innate part is that critical period, but the learned part are the social attachments and so on that occur during that time. Now, why on earth would natural selection favor imprinting? It seems rather maladaptive for that poor little duck to imprint on that puppy. Well, again, remember what normal conditions would be. Normally, the mother duck or the mother goose or whatever is going to be the first thing that that baby sees, and so to imprint on her would be very beneficial. So it is a surefire, hardwired way for the little offspring to learn from their mother, the most likely individual they're going to see when they first jump out of the egg or whatever, learn what they need to learn, okay? Babies who receive this kind of care and instruction from a parent are, of course, more likely to survive. So natural selection would favor this behavior. It is unusual for babies not to see their parent when they emerge, for their parent not to be the first thing they lay eyes on, okay? I will upload this video to the YouTube playlist here. It's really worth watching. I'll show you just a moment of it. This is showing sandhill cranes who do not know how to migrate. It is showing researchers dressing up like sandhill cranes, teaching them how to migrate using these ultralight aircraft. Here you can see a picture of them. These are the sandhill cranes hatching out, and the researchers feed them but have disguised their hand to look like a sandhill crane. They've got the ultralight disguise, the pilot of the ultralight to look like the sandhill crane, and so on, so that when these birds imprint, they are not imprinting on a human, they are imprinting on what they think is a crane, and they won't be so lost when they interact with other cranes. All right, I'll punch that up to the playlist. Take a look at it if you have time. It's pretty interesting. Bird song. Each bird species, as you will learn very, very thoroughly in this class, has its own song. There is a critical period. Again, it's an imprinted type of thing. There's a critical period when they learn their song from their parents. This video won't work on here as I have it, but I will show it to you in class. It's pretty amazing what the researchers do with this bird, and they teach it their own song. It imprints on them. So anyway, we'll talk about that more in class when September gets here. Okay. This is an interesting little caveat to that. There are some, as you might, excuse me, be aware, parasitism is a behavior in which, a symbiotic relationship in which one animal benefits by its close association with another animal, another species, but that other species is harmed. What we see here in this picture is something called brood parasitism. And essentially what happens is one bird, in this case I believe this is a cuckoo, let me make sure I've got, yes, has laid its eggs in this little bird, I'm not sure if this is some type of warbler, in this bird's nest. And then the cuckoo parents just leave. They go. They just drop the eggs off in this other species of bird's nest, and they're done. And so the other species, the cuckoo baby hatches out first. You can see it is just gigantic. It kicks the other babies out of the nest, and this poor parent, because it is programmed to feed whatever is in the nest, feeds this cuckoo baby, and the cuckoo parents do nothing. This is called brood parasitism. Interestingly, the cuckoo's song is innate. It is genetically programmed. It is not learned. It does not learn it from imprinting or anything else. Why? Because it is nowhere near any other cuckoos. It's near this little warbler that if it imprinted on it would teach it a warbler song, which would be the wrong song. Another example of, even though bird song is generally a learned behavior, there's always exceptions, and there's one. Let me just see what this is. It's not going to let me click as long as I'm in my drawing program. Sorry. We'll look at some of these little videos when we get back to class. Okay? All right. A more primitive learned behavior. We're going to kind of step back. So we've been talking so far all about imprinting. Another learned behavior is called habituation. It's a very, very, very simple, the most simple type of learning. Basically, if I were to sit in class next to you and poke you, you might look and say, "What?" And if I just kept poking and poking and poking, eventually you might get annoyed, but you would ignore me. Okay? Because you would realize that the poking doesn't really mean anything. So that's habituation. An animal responds initially to a stimulus, but that may startle it. But if that stimulus is not harmful, eventually the organism learns to ignore it, basically. You can think of it as the cry wolf effect. If you cry wolf too many times, then you're just going to ignore this stimulus. So, why is this helpful? It allows an animal to just disregard things that are basically unimportant. They don't waste energy focusing on them, running from them, whatever, if it's unimportant. A great example is in a hydra. A hydra, you may have seen a hydra when you were in the 9th grade. Usually we get some of those as long as we have time and let you look. Hydra are jellyfish, essentially. They're in the same family. They're not quite the same. As you can see, it sticks onto a surface. This is its little end, if you will, and its tentacles wave in the air and it catches food. If you poke this guy with a glass stirring rod or whatever, you poke it, his little tentacles will draw into his body and he'll be all afraid as he can get. He has no brain, but he will try to minimize his size and just hide. But after a while, if you keep poking him, he ignores it. This is an example of habituation. Okay? Baby birds will be reaching to the sky, opening their mouths, waiting to be fed, but if leaves fall on them, they will cower and hide from them. Eventually, they get habituated to the falling leaves and eventually don't cower and hide away from those anymore. Another example of habituation. Okay? Now, again, why would natural selection favor this? This is the root question we kind of need to ask for almost everything in biology to get at what the root of various behaviors or structures or molecules, whatever, in biology. Why are they there? Why would natural selection favor them? How does it increase fitness? Well, because it allows the nervous system to focus only on things that are truly important for survival and not things that are just leaves falling from trees or whatever. We don't focus on irrelevant stimuli. Okay? There are many more types of learning. Associative learning is a large, overarching term for a couple of more specific types of learning. Basically, in any type of associative learning, you're learning to associate some kind of stimulus with some kind of consequence or an event, a stimulus with an event or a consequence. For example, that poor wolf is now going to associate intense pain with interacting with a porcupine. Okay? There are two main types of associative learning: operant conditioning and classical conditioning. If you have taken a psych class, AP Psych, for example, I am certain that you have learned about operant and classical conditioning. Okay? We'll talk about classical conditioning first. Pavlov, you might have heard his name if you've taken psych. He had dogs that basically, when he would bring food to them, they would salivate in response to the food. If he would ring a bell for them, they wouldn't salivate. But when he would ring a bell and bring food, they would salivate, and they got habituated to that to the point where if they heard the bell by itself, they began to salivate because they associated it with bringing food. Okay, so that is associating the bell, some arbitrary stimulus, with the food, which in this case was the reward. Okay, and there's another little video clip that I will try to add to the playlist. This little cartoon kind of sums up classical conditioning. Watch what I can make Pavlov do. As soon as I drool, he'll smile and write in his little book. So it's kind of a flip-flop there. So the other type of associative learning is operant conditioning. We think of this as trial and error learning. You try something, it doesn't work, you try something else until you get the reward that you want. Okay? So it is associating a behavior with some reward or, unfortunately, some punishment. Classic example is learning what to eat and what not to eat. In this case, this blue jay is trying to eat a monarch butterfly. Monarch butterflies are toxic. They taste terrible. Birds don't like them. And as you can see, he then spits it out. Monarchs have as you may be aware, have this brilliant orange and black coloration, which is typically a warning coloration, meaning if you eat me, you're going to be sick. And this bird will probably now learn to avoid that orange and black coloration. Okay? Which is something similar again to what the wolf will experience. Hopefully he will recover from having all those terrible quills in his face. All right. But honestly, I'm not sure. That's pretty severe. Which is, again, hard to learn from that if you don't survive and learn. But anyway, moving on. This idea of operant conditioning was developed by B.F. Skinner. Okay, so you might want to know Pavlov and Skinner. He invented a box that he used in his experiments where a mouse would learn to associate a stimulus, like a light, with a reward, a food. He himself worked with pigeons mostly, and the pigeons would learn to peck at a certain place to get a food reward. And there are several little videos that there are links to here. By the way, all these PowerPoints are on the website as well, so you can click here, or I will try to upload these little short videos to YouTube. I think most of them are YouTube videos. Anyway, okay. We use this kind of reward and punishment operant conditioning all the time. Right here, this video is showing operant conditioning in dog training. You are, I'm sure, familiar with it, in that the animal is given a reward if he does what the owner wants him to do. And so she's trying to teach him to roll over. He's not getting it. He's not getting it. She's going to help him out. There he goes. And as a result, he gets the reward. And so they'll do this, they'll repeat this over and over and over again until finally he learns to associate rollover with rolling over and getting a treat. And so he'll do what he needs to do. We do it to you, or your parents have done it to you. We give, time out if you do something bad, or a treat if you do something good, which was what this poor little child here was talking about in this video. But again, I won't take time to watch that now. So we'll press lever for food. You associate an action that you take with a reward or a punishment, so to speak. All right, an even more sophisticated type of learning is problem solving. We see it obviously in humans. We see it in many other animals as well. This has been the crux of much debate for many, many years. Many scientists, many people have always wanted to separate humans from other animals. Only humans can use tools. Well, that's been thoroughly debunked because we've seen chimpanzees using tools. Only humans can use language. Well, we now have chimpanzees that can communicate with sign language. Of course, some people still want to say they don't really know what they're saying, but it's pretty clear that they do. And so on. Can animals other than humans use reason to problem solve? For years, people said no. But it is clear that they can. After many, many experiments, we have, of course, seen chimpanzees problem solving. We have seen crows problem solving. They are highly intelligent birds. We've seen octopus problem solving. High cognitive ability is certainly not possessed by all animals, but it is certainly possessed by more animals than only humans. What separates humans from other animals is not black and white, as much as many people want to make it so. It is not black and white. It is shades of gray. Certainly we are more sophisticated than any other animal, at least as far as we know, but other animals are not so distant from us as we would like to think sometimes. If you are interested in this kind of work, Jane Goodall is just amazing to read and listen to her talk. She was the first person to observe chimps actually making and using tools, so she was the first one to throw an arrow at this idea that only humans could make and use tools. She pretty much debunked that, and she was just a very young woman at the time, and had a pretty tough row to hoe to make people believe what she was saying. So, highly recommend reading some of her works. I'll try to post some for you, but if you Google Jane Goodall, you'll see all kinds of books. Okay? All right. This is great. This is showing problem solving in crows, ravens. I'm not sure if this is a crow or a raven, but what they are doing is trying to get this item out of this jar, and it goes and gets a stick, and the stick is almost getting the food item out, but it's still not quite right. It's still not quite doing what the crow wants it to do. So watch what he does to the stick. Okay, he's wedged it and he bent it so that now he has a hook, and now he can get the food out of the tube. So again, a tool maker. That's a tool maker right there. It's a bird. Again, not so different from you and I. Okay. Sea otters also use rocks as tools. Granted, it's not modified by them. They just grab a rock and use it. But if we take a look at this, let's see. And I'm wasting our time because I can't find the segment where he actually does use the rock as a tool. Here we go. So he's got his abalone, and he will carry it up to the surface, and look at him use a rock to try to crack that open right on his belly. So again, another tool user right there. Problem solving. All right, that's it. So this was all about learned behaviors, and we talked about imprinting. We talked about associative learning consisting of operant and classical conditioning. We talked about habituation, the most primitive type of learning, and we talked about reasoning, problem solving, things like that. All right, that's it. Thanks for watching, and I will catch you in the next podcast.